everyone, Joe here from Action X. Welcome to What's in the Tube, where it's our show where we normally review things in the world of television, which include episode-by-episode reviews of currently on-the-air shows, season-by-season reviews of shows that are long into the airwaves or have wrapped up, or doing these quick impressions where I do a binge on my own accord and I talk about what I watched about it, and it's not a review sort of set. I'm definitely not going to give it like a set review. It's just my thoughts on what I watched and my normal history with that sort of thing. Today we're talking about The Boys, where this was a show that I've heard about since the show came out. It has been very critically acclaimed. It's been very different as we have approached this kind of not more like a peak in superhero content where so much of the backlog of superheroes have been kind of tapped into movies and TV shows and video games, where it's not just you have to be a Batman, you don't have to be a Superman, you don't have to be a Spider-Man to get a movie or a TV show anymore. Now, everyone, even a character named Peacemaker, can somehow have an amazing TV show. One of the best first seasons I've ever seen this year and all of my life. And that doesn't faze people anymore because we just gotten to that point where, like, yeah, any character or any team can be a great piece of media if you put the right adaptation and team behind it. So with The Boys, I've heard about it for forever. I heard amazing things about the show. It was another one of those things where thankfully it wasn't overhyped as I thought it was going to be. Not to say it's not an amazing show. It's just that like a Game of Thrones or something along that nature where I constantly hear memes, I constantly hear conversations about it, and then by the time I get to it, I don't enjoy it as much. The Boys seems to have that formula of it's big in the moment, and when it has a new piece of media to show, if it's a new trailer or a new clip, that's when the hype starts to go around it. So it's not that consecutive 365 strategy to promote your show. It isn't. So I kind of did not feel that overhyped, but also I was very tempered on my expectations since, again, it is another one of those. It's very talked about. It is very commercially praised by both the audience and the fans. So I had to be very careful to what I was going to be watching for myself. And thankfully, I was very thankful that I went with that expectation mindset, since by the time I rolled credits on the final episode of season 2, at the time of this recording, season 3 is not out yet, I really, 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 really found it to be great to, at points, amazing, where I binged this show in a week. Now again, 2 seasons, 10, 20 episodes, it's not a terrible long time to binge something, it really isn't, but it's something that I initially thought, because I made a tweet about it, that this was a show that, hey, I was interested in going in, but like a lot of things, like, you know, like Game of Thrones specifically, I had to temper I thought it was going to take a while for me to get through it and then eventually talk about my thoughts on it. Where I was surprised that by the time I reached the end of season 1, it hasn't even been a week yet. And then I finished season 2, I think on the week mark exactly on when I started watching The Boys. And I was like, I wanted more. I wanted season 3 right now. I'm aware there's an animated anthology series coming out in a couple days called Diabolical. I'm not planning on watching that because it's not to say I don't like animation, it's just that it's not my cup of tea. I want the next Boys thing to come out, which is in June, so it's not too long of a wait for me personally as a fan. Now that I'm calling myself a fan, I would say that it was a little bit slow going at first. I think the first weekend I took the first 5 episodes at the time because it didn't hit me yet. It wasn't like, it was still like the phase of where is the tropes? Like, where are the superhero tropes that, you know, because again, with the name The Boys, like I always thought it was about this, and again, it's always the don't judge this case, a show by its cover or by its poster. Where I saw the first promo poster when it came out, I was like, I do not understand what the fuck this show's about. And then I see a different sort of group. So my initial thoughts, and this isn't a spoiler, this is one of those Joe thinks of this, and then he's completely wrong. I thought Billy Butcher was a member of The Boys, and then he got dishonorably discharged, and now this is just his revenge scheme. That's what I honestly thought the show was going to be about. And then when you get into it, you start to think, no, this isn't it. And then what really now actually kind of hooked me in fully once I hit the first half, the halfway mark of season 1, was it reminds me of My Hero Academia in a different way, where when my co-host of multiple shows on this channel and my main co-host on my other channel, George, he pitched me, he made me watch My Hero Academia many moons ago. And one of the things that I was very questionable about that show is that he basically pitched it to me as like, yeah, there is a main protagonist in Deku, but there's a lot of other characters that also have to focus. And I viewed as that there's absolutely no way you could make that story work. And spoilers, I was immediately attracted to it, like not a couple episodes in. But one of the things that I was very curious about is that when it comes to Marvel or DC, you have a very small selection of the population that are with superpowers, and then some are superheroes, some are supervillains, some are just in the neutral, like, I have powers, but I have nothing to do with it. In My Hero, you have a majority of the population have superpower, and about half of them are superheroes that are making this sort of thing as a profession. And that's kind of the thing that you have to keep in mind about superheroes being a profession. That's kind of where you take it here with The Boys, where they really hone into that element a lot, but it shows you the darker side of, sadly, this is the thing about our world, especially me living in America, with corporations, and there's a lot of shady stuff they do, and it's a lot of, business first type of deal, beneficial to the business, to the board of directors, to the shareholders, where superheroes are, you could be profitable, in an age of social media such as Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and, YouTube and all those platforms that do exist in that world. That is something that superheroes use to make money. And it very much was goofy a bit at times of the level of the amount of times they do it. I'm not going to spoil like some of the specific examples that I found hilarious during the show, but it was very fun in how a life of a superhero does not always equal you're going to go out there and save people. Where I made the comparison to My Hero, where My Hero, you see there are arcs, there are points in the story where you get to see a hero's day-to-day life of, constantly being out there, being a hero, and that's all they do. And in this world, that's a fantasy world, that's, in terms of animation, this is our case of like, it is mostly, for me, the most realistic of takes of superheroes in our society. Where, yeah, we have the Dark Knight trilogy, and yes, there is the Batman movie, which is coming out in a few days, which I'm not going to say for a few weeks, which is very disappointing to me, but I'm doing it for the sake of my friends to see the movie together. So my apologies that I won't be there live, but when it comes to The Boys specifically, I was really enthralled by it, just how much that they destroyed and did their own take on like a team of superheroes, where the boys are the renegade group of, again, I don't want to even spoil their backstory, because the slow reveal of like what the purpose of the boys is very heartbreaking. It's very, there's a lot of stuff that people don't really talk about. Like there's the negative side of the super heroics that a lot of people don't like, about being a superhero and the impact you make on civilians, where like take Spider-Man 2, like, Peter Parker being Spider-Man, like it has a toll on himself and it affects his personal relationships with the people around him. That's kind of like the minimum of the effects of being a superhero, where I don't even want to mention, like, again, this is quick impressions, we don't spoil anything. It's very hard. Like, I want to bring up some very funny examples, very specific examples, but there's a lot of cases where people get hurt by a superhero, not directly, indirectly. And there are cases where these superheroes, they're just being honest. They're like a real person. Sometimes they just don't, pardon my language, give a shit. They really don't. And that what makes it attractive, because like it's different. You don't see that often, because if a superhero makes a mistake, you would often see either time out of the movie or time out of the show where they express their guilt. And yes, that is them, being an actual hero and building out their character and building out their emotional structure of their personality. But in this show, the majority of the time, those like feelings and care, they're not even addressed, or they just like, oh, okay, like they don't even acknowledge it. And yes, I'm saying that like I'm a pure asshole, but no, that was one of like the standout things, that this is something totally new. And I talked about it with privately with my friends of mine, is that George brought it up too, that superheroes could become the way of the Westerns, where it is so popular, everyone's trying to do them, and then eventually it just gets a burnout and people stop. And it becomes a very rarely used genre film to use, because it was well overdone. I always believe that, and a lot of other directors and creative forces said this before, is that as long as superhero movies can find a way to become fresh, become intriguing, as well as keep the audience entertained and not just be an action film, they're going to survive a long time. The Boys is an example that they do something completely different with the formula. I never once saw an aspect of a traditional superhero show. This was nearly entirely different, and that what makes it stand out, where you don't care about the people who are actually in the superhero outfit. It's the people who are not in those outfits and trying to be a hero. And it goes back to the whole gray conversation I mentioned a bunch on other What's in the Tube episodes, generally speaking, where there is no thing as being a good guy and there's no such thing as being a bad guy, where in the narrative of this story is that the Seven, the superhero team that we mostly follow half the time, the ones I mentioned before, that they're completely different types of, they're not the Avengers, they're not the Justice League, they're not any sort of team we've seen before. They're very much different. And then you have the Boys. So in their narrative, in like just a typical, like what the news tells us, is that the Seven are the big superhero. They are the celebrities. They are the big stars of the world. We should believe them. And then the Boys are just a group of terrorists. They're villains. They're bad people. And obviously for us watching the show, it's like, okay, the Boys are the heroes because the Seven very much hurt them. But there's a moment at the end of season 1 where anyone who watched The Boys knows what I'm talking about with this, is that when you get to the end of season 1 and there's that conversation between two of the characters where it's like, I'll be very broad about it, is that, okay, what I did to you was an accident, but what you did to me, you did on purpose. And that's the example of the grid, where it's like both sides have their sides of the story. It's also both sides have their own personalities and how they choose to respond to what they do. And then when you clash with another person, it very much kind of creates that whole, okay, who's in the right and who's in the wrong here? Where it's like, yeah, for me, I know what side I'm on, but another viewer who's watching the show could have a completely different take on the situation. It's like, no, this guy is right, or this guy made the mistake, or that sort of thing. And it's one of those shows where like everyone can go into it having a different opinion about what the about who's right and who's wrong, and like what's the things that that you think about, and that what is your perception of being right and wrong. And at the end of the day, again, back to the gray argument, there is no right and wrong. You do what you need to do for your own reasons, and those are going to clash with someone else. And that is the case here. And everything gets murky, and everything goes like really well into detail about just who's at fault here. And it's just the first 2 seasons, and I really got enthralled with the story at the second half of season 1, and then I immediately powered through season 2 because it just kept me going. It was so different. I keep saying different like it's like a big like example, but yeah, it is different compared to a lot of the shows we see on the air. It is very different. It is not your traditional like superhero show. It isn't. It's very much unique and different, and it at times gets scary because like just imagine having to be in that world with superheroes with those powers that could go on any control. I don't want to be a dick. I really don't want to say this, but when Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, the Snyder verse side of the DCEU was going on, and they definitely really, for me, they did a good job painting the picture of Superman is, of course, a hero. Us being like, he is a genuine hero. He's always going to be the good guy, but there's always going to be people that are going to be scared of like, what if he turns to the bad side? What if he becomes evil? And how do you stop an individual like that? And again, I'm really not trying to make a spoiler for this property in specific, but you have those moments like you have a character like Homelander or A-Train or Starlight. What if they turn evil? How do you stop them? There's a decent chance you might not be able to, and that's a scary point because there is no solution. Like, they're very much indestructible. Of course, everyone has their weakness, but a lot of the times they don't. They find a way out of it, and they could do what they want. And especially for me, like, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but season 2 definitely played with that notion of like, if superpowers get into the wrong hands, it can create a whole new slew of problems. And that's what this world is trying to create and present those problems in a very realistic way with a very lovable cast, with a cast that does their roles very well. Everyone's was correctly cast, and every episode does not miss a beat. 8 episodes is just enough for this show to present itself. It does not overstay its welcome, and it does leave you wanting more. Like, you cannot wait for the next season. You cannot wait to see what the next big storyline is. For me, when I ended season 2, it mostly felt like this could have been the end. Like, if the boys like got canceled, for example, like, obviously there was more story to tell, but season 2 kind of felt like, if it ends here, yeah, it ends here. Like, this world will sadly keep going. In the example of, it takes a very long time for there to be a big impact. So I end this with The Boys is by far one of my most favorite binges. I enjoyed every episode of the way. It took me a little bit of a while for me to really get enthralled into the story, but by the time I stayed around and I got into it, I very much enjoyed my time with the show. I cannot wait for season 3. I was surprised at the amount of actors that I recognize from other TV shows that popped into here. It was amazing. Standout favorites, Jack Quaid as Huey was an example. Karl Urban kills it. I've always low-key been a fan of Karl Urban, but now he really owns the Billy Butcher role. Anthony Starr as Homelander, very much a very creepy person to be a superhero in terms of him personifying that role. I very much was never comfortable around him, and the promo photos, the promo posters they did with him is like some of the weirdest I've ever seen, but it does demonstrate his character, personality, and traits very well in those posters. And Erin Moriarty, such a beauty. I think Loki, she is like one of like the shining heroes of the story. This is an ensemble piece. Now one character owns the role, but you feel a little bit more connected to Huey and Starlight's story more specifically than among the rest. I can't wait for next season. My boy Jensen Ackles from Supernatural is going to pop in as Soldier Boy. So if we ever do a season 3 review or something related to Boy season 3, I will play the Soldier Boy song in the background and get myself copyright infringement because of that. But it's an opportunity. We'll see how that goes. Boy season 3 comes out on June. I can't wait to come back into that world again. 3 months away won't be that bad. It won't be that bad. But yeah, so for me, I highly recommend The Boys. If you have not watched it yet, please go give it a watch. It's very mature. It's really pushes the boundary of the rating system. So go into it like very much expecting a lot of things to cross certain boundaries. But otherwise, you're just going to have a hell of a time there. If you have watched The Boys, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of it? Let's have that conversation. Talk about it. You can find all the episodes of The Boys on Amazon Prime, so go check that out. Again, I highly recommend it. I can't wait to see season 3 in June. So with that being said, I think that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's the Two from Action. So give me my quick impressions on The Boys on Amazon Prime. If you want to know what we're doing normally on What's the Two besides I lost my train of beat. We're normally doing Walker episode reviews. We're normally doing the Rookie episode reviews each and every week after the brand new episodes air live on the air. We also do Let Joe Talk on this channel. We have another channel called The Collection Compass, so go check those out as well. If you care about The Boys, hopefully we'll do something more down the line of it. I don't imagine this is the last piece of The Boys content I'll talk about. There'll probably be more to come, but we'll see how that goes. We'll absolutely see. And yeah, so again, please subscribe to us on youtube.com/actionnextvideos. Ring that bell for notification when our next episode review is live. Please also ring that bell for notification when our next, I am repeating myself, I am very much broken today. Like, favorite, share this review if you want to. And please also follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates we may have for the channel. But until then, until next time we see each other, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.